name we pray. Amen. So, man, we go a lot of places with this, but one of the things I think is good as we talk about kingdom stuff, Veronica, and as you work through this field, I know you've seen a lot. You've seen a lot of good, hopefully. It's a good and bad. But I want to encourage us tonight, if you're listening, please tag, well, you can't tag people no more. Share, you can share, tag, you can tag, all that stuff, because I think this is going to be beneficial, not only in the kingdom of God, but I also want to say in particular to African American families. I'm gonna call that out. And because what I want us to do too, I don't want to just shout and be jumping around the church. I think we need to be thinking, as we think about legacy, as we think about legacy, period, you know, creating wealth, generational wealth. One of the things that the Jews, and this is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they're thinking generationally. We look at it now, and I think it's a culture thing, right? We used to have that because we always talked about the ancestors and we're Big Mom level, Big Mom recipe book and that. But also we need to be leaving a little bit more than Big Mom recipe book. Can I get an amen? Amen. And but when you think about this thing, these things about inheritance, wills, heirs, property, just tell me where your passion came in. I think your family had some property some one time. You used to tell that story, I think, and everybody, whatever. But and it may not, I don't know if I ain't gonna say where your passion comes from. Just tell me why you think it's important, and you can just jump right in wherever you want to.
Okay, so this topic is so important to me, and the more I do this work, the more the passion comes in. So it started for me just like you talked about my family. My mom's grandparents left their children some land in Louisiana, and after they passed away, they had a will, and there was some questions about what the will meant. It said share and share alike, and people tried to interpret their own terms of what share and share alike meant. And
right.
So they said some people were supposed to get less than others, but they ended up where my grandma and her brothers and sisters and cousins, because she was raised by her, I think her uncle and her aunt. So it was her and her brothers and sisters and her cousins as well. They ended up with this land. But none of them lived on the property or had that physical connection anymore. They grew up on it, but they moved to Las Vegas, Ohio, other parts of Louisiana, and they didn't have that connection anymore. So they sold it. And, you know, that's not a huge problem, selling the property.
Right.
I don't know if they got the best money for it.
Right.
That's another situation. I don't know if that happened or not. But they sold it because it's like, well, we don't want it anymore, so we're done with it. And that for me was like, it kind of hurt me because I was like, I would have loved to be part of that legacy, but that's the decision that they made, and I respect that. But that kind of piqued my interest in it. And when I had some opportunities to get involved in this work as an attorney, I took them and just realized how deep it went. Like for me, when I think about the things that we're passing to our children, like you said, we got grandma's recipe book, we got houses, we got land, we got all this stuff, but with that comes the stories, comes the lessons. I'm often amazed at seeing, you know, people who had land and they pass it through the generations, and you see how their children operate in the world. They operate with a different sense of entitlement. And I'm not saying in a bad way, but it's like they operate in more of a way of expecting something out of life.
Okay.
Because their parents, they saw their parents or grandparents acquire something of worth, keep it, and pass it to them. And a lot of times you see that ethic pass through as well. So it's like when we pass our property to our children, if we do it right, we also pass on our values, those stories, that history. So that's one part of it, just that connection to the past, like you talked about, honoring our ancestors and honoring the physical things they left us, but then also the stuff you can't really touch. That stuff comes with us as well. And when you go to the family land, that's when the stories come out. Like we don't have the land. We have some of the land in our family, but they talk about how my great grandfather, I think, he used to have a big cookout every year on the land and invite people and allow them to eat. And, you know, that kind of stuff, it goes through the generations. And when you have the land to tell those stories on, it's even more important.
Yeah, you can tell a story right there on the land.
And so you can visualize it.
Right.
But yeah, there's so much more. I want to say one more thing about that, and I want to definitely let you go to the next thing. With passing on land, property, money to our children and our children's children, they don't have to start life where we started.
Good.
So they don't have to, like if you started at square one and you leave your children something, they can start at square 10.
Yeah.
And then hopefully their children can start at square 15 or 20.
Right.
But when you don't plan, then you started at square one, they gonna end up starting at square one, and everybody's just gonna be in the same place. So there's no opportunity for growth when we don't plan.
Yeah. I think what can happen, and we're going to get into some practicalities too. I think we think two or three things sometimes. If we think about the future of when life is over, we thinking about heaven, by and by. If we're thinking about now, we do it in a sense where we act like we're gonna always be here, so to speak. Like we have no assets. And so a lot of times I believe what we need to do is say, you'll be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so I think this is part of the mind renewal as well for us as saints, for us as Christians, for us particularly if, not trying to just make it all about black Christians, but I think it gives us something to really look for. Like you said, why should we start over? You look at it, and you two are graduates of Mercer University. You have people who come back and such and such done donated $1 million, and they giving $1 million to schools. I'm talking about the schools. So you think about what they leave in their family. You got, I don't know, and I'm just making this up, Parcel walkway on the campus or something. Whoever school or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if we just think about wealth in that way. I think we think about being rich, but I don't know if we think about generational wealth. Do I want to go wheels first or ads problem? Let's talk about wheels first. What would be just some basic stuff you would ask or say about wheels, like even now? Right, like I told you the other day when we were talking about it, Jan was like, we need to do that. You're going to get a wheel, like if something was to happen to the children. Just give us all the scenarios you can. I'll ask questions along the way. So let's do wheels first, then we'll go to the ads part, which I guess is all going to be in the link.
Really all in.
Yeah, well, let's go there. Let's just jump right in. We talk about cars, grandma rings, all that type of stuff. But the most of us got which one bad. Remember that quilt grandma made that was about 30 pounds? You know? That quilt, boy, everybody I had it. Just we call it patchwork. It just had all bunch of. But you put that. You and your cousin, I made a pallet out of that. Put it on the bed. We keep in that chest. We keep grandma that in that chest. But that's really talking about, and we thank God for that. Let me say that I don't want to say that wasn't worthy or treasure or whatever either. But that's really talking about really getting to the nuts of both financial empowerment. How should we start thinking or moving, or what can we start doing now? I'm 20, so what can I start doing? I'm only over 20, but plus or minus, right? Right, yeah. So what would you suggest, or what some things, or what would you want Christians just to say, hey, get your head out the clouds, here's what you need to be thinking about. Yeah.
So, let's see where to start. So I want to start with Grandma's quilt.
Okay.
Because Grandma's quilt may or may not, may be worth something monetarily. Because quilts these days, homemade quilts, that could be worth something these days.
You got a point.
But and it's also Grandma, if she left the quilt, she either didn't have as much other stuff to leave, and that's what she could leave, or it was she didn't have a proper plan. It'd be one of those things.
Right.
But those things we do want to. So just going back to the quilt situation. So I think that one thing we have to do is think about what's valuable to us and what's not.
Okay.
And some of it is monetary, but some of it is sentimental. And I tell you, Grandma's quilt is what they're gonna fight over at the courthouse.
Wow.
They might not fight. They might fight over the house. They might fight over the bank accounts. But it's gonna be Grandma's quilt that somebody be about to fight somebody physically over, because it's like those sentimental things end up being that thing.
Right.
It's like that's all I got from her, and you try to take it from me. And so it's important for us to think about those sentimental things, the antiques, the family heirlooms when we're doing our estate planning. So, because you might not think, they don't care about that old quilt, but that's gonna be the thing they fight over.
Wow.
Because
so we're saying Grandma need to write down.
Yeah, she need to say who get the quilt. She need to be specific about that, because they'll fight over that. You can sell a house and split the money. You can go in the bank account, split the money. You can sell the land, split the money, but you can't split that quilt.
Let me ask you this, and I know it's best to be in writing, but let's say Grandma just got everybody around, or Granddaddy got everybody around the house this day, and said, when I leave here, Johnny boy gonna get the quilt. Okay, she leave. Now everybody has heard Grandmama say Johnny boy get the quilt, but when it come up, Johnny boy is her great grandson. But then let's say one of her children start acting funky about the quilt. Does the court take the voice of, hey, we all heard her say that, or what you think? I mean, I know that might be a far-fetched. I don't know.
No, I need to talk about this right here.
Okay. Grandma said, Grandma called everybody to the house. Hey, Johnny boy get the quilt. Everybody up. Auntie ain't said nothing this time. Then when Grandma died, we get ready to get the general. I want the quilt. That's my mama. Like everybody else done heard her, everybody else gonna vouch and say, yeah, we heard her say it. Take it from now.
So I actually made a note to do a webinar. I can't remember what it's called, but I think it was, what Mama said won't hold up in court.
Oh, that's good.
So I think that's what I'm going to do a webinar on, because I had a situation where that's what they were saying. Well, Mama said this, we know what she wanted. And I said, but this black and white don't say that. And so we can't take that into the court. They're going to look at that black and white. And so it's essential that people have a properly executed will. And when I say properly executed, that means that it must be signed by the person whose will it is. They have to sign it in the presence of two people who are over the age of 14, which is old law. Will law is one of the oldest laws on the book. So over the age of 14.
14, you
14. They used to be grown back then.
I was going to say
they was 14.
Yeah.
So you had to be over the age of 14 to be a witness. You have to be over the age of 14 to have a will. You have to sign. Everybody has to be there, so you can't sign it here and then take it to your neighbor and say, can you sign this, and then take it to your cousin. And they also can't be people who are interested in the estate. One of the biggest problems we see with wills failing is like, my sister signed it, my cousin signed it, and they all getting something from the will. That's not going to stand up in court. It has to be disinterested people who will not inherit from you either with the will or without a will. And so that's something that people need to keep in mind. Also,
y'all need to tell me to tune in on this stuff.
Yeah, y'all gotta tune in, cause like I get like so many people people come and tell me, they be like, no, this is not how it is. And I'm like, I do this every day in court. This is how it is. You have to have that paper that was executed a certain way, and you have to have that wording right. So sometimes, a lot of times people, they want to do their own will. I know how to do a will. I did my research and this and that, and I get what you're saying, but like, you better have really done some good research, because I've seen wills done by lawyers who still ain't do it right. You know, it's like there's certain language that we need to use, And if we want to accomplish a certain result, we got to make sure that language lines up. So, for example, if I have a house and I have 5 kids, I do not need to leave this one house to my 5 kids. I don't care how sweet they are. I don't care how much they love each other, how good they are to each other. I do not need to leave this one house to 5 kids. Because when mama is gone, when daddy is gone, they don't have you to stabilize them, to keep them from fighting. So I want to live in a house. I want to sell that house. I don't want to have nothing to do with it. Don't call me. Don't ask me nothing about it. And then the other person, I want my cousin to stay there. All those people with all those different visions for that house cannot have their vision take place. So it's a fight. You setting them up for a fight. And so that's what.
So you got to make the decision and say.
I encourage it. You don't a lot. And so this is something else. I encourage people to have culturally competent lawyers do their wills, and that's people who understand where you're coming from culturally.
That's good. We got a question? No comment. Yeah, you can be asking questions or comment.
Yeah, well, you know, like culturally competent, because I'm trying to figure out the most PC way to say this, but traditional lawyers don't always look like us, and they don't always have the same values as us. They don't see property the same way that we do. And I'm just saying, traditional lawyers are white men. Most of them are not black women like me. And I'm not saying if you're black, you got to go to a black lawyer, but I'm telling you, I've seen the difference between wills done by somebody who understands where the client comes from culturally and someone who doesn't. So one of the things that we see that's been very interesting to me is the way that black people versus, I would say, middle income black people and middle income white people tend to view houses differently. And middle to low income black people. And I'm making general statements, so y'all please don't get me, but it's just some general observations. Let's say you got an older white person. They live in a house. The house is worth $50,000. There's some development in the community, and the value of the house doubles. For the average middle income white person, that's good news. My house went from $50,000 to $100,000. I done made $50,000 of equity.
Right.
A black person, their house goes from $50,000 to $100,000, and they're upset because now my property tax is going up. I done paid the note on this house. I don't have a mortgage, but now every year I got to come out my pocket thousands of dollars more than what I came out before. And so I'm making generalizations, but I'm just saying how the way that a lot of times traditionally black people view houses and white people view houses, and I'm being real broad with my generalizations, so y'all, I already just said it.
They ain't gonna say nothing. They'll be all right.
Don't get on. Pastor said don't say nothing. But when you creating a will, they might say, well, all you gotta do is sell the house and split the money. And we like, what? That's my mama's first house. Do you know what blood, sweat, and tears went into that house? We ain't finna sell this house. It's gonna stay in the family for generations. A black family sees it as the family home house. A white family sees it as a bank account. And so I'm not saying that you can't go to a white lawyer and they understand that, but you might go in there saying this is what I want to do, but they're seeing it from a whole different perspective. And so I just think that we have to make sure that we have culturally competent attorneys who understand how black people view houses, how they view land, how they view property. It might be different.
Oh, great information. Appreciate you, JP, for checking in. Tag somebody to tell them, JP, they better get on this. So, rule number 1, if nothing else, get you a culturally competent lawyer. Culturally competent.
And I would put a sub point A. If they're not culturally competent, at least they listen. Somebody who's gonna listen to what you say.
Right.
And if you say, this is how we view property, and this is how I want my will to address that. Somebody who will listen and try to help you come up with a solution that's gonna meet that.
Okay.
So.
Man, where do we go from here? Send your questions in. Send your questions. So, culturally competent lawyer.
So, can I say something else about wills?
Yeah, keep going.
So with wills, another
this is your
thing
show tonight.
I'll say is that once you do the will and the person dies, you have to probate the will. You don't hold on to it. And I did workshops and I talked to people about their wills and or their they might be the executor over their grandparents' estate or their parents' estate. And I say, did you probate the will? Oh, it's just in the dresser drawer. It's like, but you gotta take it to probate court. You can't just keep it under the bed in the box. Like you gotta take it. But I got the will. I read it to everybody, and so we good. But no, you gotta take it to probate court so that they can get you appointed as the executor officially, and that that will is legally binding on the property. And a lot of times people don't understand that. And I also encourage getting a lawyer to help you with that process. Don't try to do it yourself. And once you get a lawyer, I don't know what it is, but you gotta stay on these lawyers and make sure that you are clear on what they're gonna do. Because a lot of times, it's the tradition around in this community, and I hadn't been practicing long enough to understand why it is. But traditionally, lawyers will take the will to probate court, they'll get you appointed as the executor, and then they done with the case. But there's a lot of other steps that have to be taken after that. And one of those being making sure that the executor signs the deeds over from the estate to the people who are going to receive the property. And I don't really know why attorneys don't typically do that around here. I was talking to a retired attorney, and he said it's just not the custom around here. Because it's not legally required to do it. If you have a will and you go to probate court and you get appointed as the executor, after a certain period of time, the law assumes that you gave the property to the heirs.
Right.
But it's no legal documentation of that, and that can cause problems in the future.
Okay.
And so I encourage people to make sure you talk to your lawyer and get them to carry the process all the way through, such that the estate no longer owns the property and the property has been deeded out of the estate into the people. Because I've seen cases where it was just not clear about what happened. And so generations have passed, and we don't know if we should count this as part of the estate or if we should count this as being in the names of the heirs. And that's where the heirs property stuff comes in.
You get you a lawyer.
We really, there is a point in lawyers. I do think that it shouldn't be this complicated.
Right.
It should be easier for people to do, but it's not right now. So until it becomes easier, you need to hire a lawyer. It's an investment, but it will help protect your future investment.
So I think that's what I'm more so about. Like, let's not bootleg it. You know what I'm saying? Let's not bootleg it. I believe in other words, I believe in paying for my comfort. I know some people, they try to go all around the world. I'm going to go to, and I'm not naming these places, so let me not name them. I don't want to get sued. Legal this, illegal that. And that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Thank God I have one in my in the off. I mean in the sanctuary. Thank God I can have one in our congregation. And sometimes God just bring those things. I think it's needed because of number one, you're placing this body, particularly I believe, for the work we're going to do in this area, the community is making, and how the enlightenment you'll bring. But I also think it's good because I don't know. Once again, I don't know anybody else that does this that look like us. Now I could be wrong. What does it say? What does probate mean? Good question.
And I'd say there are a couple other attorneys here in this area, but there's not a lot of us here in this area. And it's not a lot of us around the state, but I could probably put my hands on most of them because we got a little group. But so probate is, it really means proving a will. So just like I said, you had your family member, they had a will, they passed away, and that will right at that point is not really legally binding. And so you have to take it to probate court and probate the will so that you can prove that this was the last will and testament of the person whose will it says it is. So if it says your grandfather, Joe Smith, You have to go to court and prove that was his last will and testament. And there are a few things that when you will file what's called a petition, which is basically an application to the court saying that I want to have this, to probate this will. And there are a few things that you have to swear to or attest to, such as far as I know, no one else has tried to probate a different will, either in this community or in another state or county. You have to say things like, these were the heirs of this person. I've given notice to all the heirs. That means that I've told everybody legally and through a legal process.
So good.
This is who the heirs are. And so you legally have to notify the heirs. And the way that the law requires now is that you either have them served by a sheriff if they live in the state of Georgia, or in some circumstances, if you ask for permission from the court, then you can do it by registered or certified mail, to say that I have notified this person at the best address I have for them. But there are those requirements, and that's another thing that I see sometimes when people do it themselves. They may not make sure that notice has gone out to everybody, or they try to decide, well, we don't really consider him our brother because he was on the side. Like, our parents weren't married. Their parents weren't married when they had, so we don't really count him as our brother.
Wow.
And that's not for you to decide. Like, there's a legal way of determining if somebody is someone's heir. And so you can't just leave people off. That's the biggest way to have a fight. When people leave folks off the petition, then if you don't give everybody who's entitled to notice proper notice, and that means that in the future they can come back and undo it. So this is not a probate court. The way they set it up, they try to make it so it's easy for lay people to do it, but there's still so much. Like, even knowing which petition to file, that's something that a lot of people wouldn't know offhand. And then knowing what's required when serving a petition, who's entitled to notice, and making sure that you get the notices out to the debtors and creditors within the right time frame. There's a lot that goes into it.
So I hope that she answered that third about probate. It's not the step show you go to.
Now, that was interesting to me when I became a lawyer. I was like, there has to be I'm sure that it makes sense, like proofing, but
right. So you're not thinking like, I'm like, now what's the underline, the etymology of the word?
I think it's Latin.
Yeah. Here we go. If a house,
I got law school questions.
if a house has been willed away to 3 family members, is there a chance that the executor, being what, can claim the house alone?
So, there is a chance, but it's not going to be a straightforward chance. I can't answer this like exactly like this is the answer, but what I will say is that if someone has been willed property or an interest in property, then they're entitled to either the property or the value of that property.
Okay.
So let's say the house is worth $90,000 and it's 3 people. Then the best thing for the executor to do is to go ahead and put $60,000 up and give that money to the other heirs.
Okay. And they keep the actual structure.
So they can keep the house, and the other folks keep the money. But the thing is, as the executor, you have to be very careful because you are a fiduciary for the estate, which means that you have a higher responsibility to the other people. So, for example, if y'all just brothers and sisters and y'all inherited the house together, and the executor is like your father's brother. He was the executor, and y'all all, as the children, got your parts of the house. You don't really owe any responsibility to your brothers and sisters because y'all are just heirs together. There's some responsibilities, but it's not a fiduciary duty. But if you're the executor, if you're a sibling and you're the executor, you have a fiduciary duty to the other heirs, which means that I have to account for everything I do. I'm accountable to you. I can't take anything for myself that I'm not entitled to. And also, if I decide to sell the property, especially if I'm selling it to myself, it has to be for fair market value. It can't be like, oh well, I'm gonna cut the estate. I'm gonna cut myself a deal, and because I'm the executive, I'm gonna sell it for half the price. Like that could land you in jail, you know, because you're not being.
It's 90. That the house going for 30.
Yeah, it's like it went for nobody wanted it.
Right.
So you need to try to sell it to somebody on the open market, or you need to be prepared to pay probably even more than what it would be worth by an appraisal, because you want to make sure that you're not shortchanging the estate in any way.
Gotcha. Did we answer that best way we could? I want to make sure we get it. Is there a chance that the executor, being one of the members, can claim the house alone? Okay. So if I break this down, I'm going to try to break this down. Y'all know I want to be a lawyer at one time.
Not too late.
It is now.
You got too many degrees.
Yeah, I'm working on these other theological ones. But that's how you would approach the text, like from that place. Before you put the other one up, John. So how I hear it is, if you're going to try to do that, you're going to have to give the value of the house to the other two people. Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's the best way to do it, fair market value.
Okay. Hopefully that answers your question. You're getting free legal advice right now anyway. Mm-hmm. But if you're not, and I'm not trying to be sassy, if that doesn't answer, I would just say try to reform your question or just ask another one to get deeper. But that's why she said this one is not, she said before she went into it, she said this is not just a straight cut, bam, this is what happened. Mm-hmm. It's like when I preach, for every text there's a context. Mm-hmm. So for every law there's something that, they call it preceding or prejudice or whatever. Precedent, all right.
And in this case, like, they might come to me and say, oh, and I forgot to say this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, you could get the house. You know, like it might be something else that they didn't tell in the question that once I see all the circles. And I'm not saying to tell it, don't do it. Don't put your legal questions too detailed on YouTube. Because you never know who's watching. Yeah, but so I do want to say that I forgot to give a disclaimer. Nothing that I say tonight should be construed as legal advice. You should talk to an attorney about your personal circumstances, because there's no way that I could give an answer for everybody's situation on this kind of a platform. So do not construe anything as legal advice. Thank you.
That's called indemnifying yourself.
Yes.
There you go. What if you want to hire an attorney to help with your will, but you're intimidated by the cost?
That's a good question. So
I'm gonna let you answer that, because I
you know. Okay.
We'll get you some. Yeah. Go ahead though on this one.
So if you are intimidated by the cost, it does cost money to have your will done. I will say that not all attorneys cost the same. Some attorneys cost less than others. Because I'm saying that, don't think that Veronica is the economy attorney, because I'm not.
Exactly.
I put so much into what I do that I can't do it as cheap as some people do, and I don't know how they do it, but I can't do it because I for me, and I'm gonna get back on the question, but for me, this is almost personal. I done seen too many black folks lose their land and their houses and their property and their wealth for me to do a quick will. So I'm just telling y'all that. And, from my heart, that, people will say, oh, a simple will, I could just do this and that. That's how black folks lose their land, with these simple wills. You got a house that's worth $100,000, you leave it to 3 people, they fight over it, and then the only thing to do is to sell it. There's no wealth pass. Mm-hmm. So that kind of attention can't be done for cheap. Gotcha. So I say that, but also just in terms of being intimidated by the cost, you have to look at what you stand to lose if you don't invest. It's just like any other investment. You put a certain amount of money in, but the expectation is that you get a lot more out. And of course, when it comes to estate planning, we don't necessarily expect to receive the return on our investment while we're living, but our children get that return on the investment after we're gone, or our grandchildren, because the Bible scripture says they leave an inheritance to their children's children. So we should be thinking about the second generation after us at least. But I have seen, like I talked to somebody who spent, $30,000, $40,000 on legal fees fighting over something. That if the proper planning was in place and they had the proper legal representation, they would not have spent 30, 40,000. This is on courts and lawyers. Ain't nobody in the family got this money. This is courts and lawyers fighting. So we, right, a lot of black folk, and it's not everybody. It won't be me when I'm gonna tell y'all this. And I hope it ain't y'all either, but a lot of black folks, we don't have a whole lot to go around when we gone. We might leave 50,000, 100,000. We might leave 10,000. The legal fees fighting over it is gonna eat it up. But if you invest the amount now that is a fraction of what you might spend on legal fees, it's worth it. I would say just another example. I had an estate where the person who died, before they died, or rather was it after? Somehow they came into a significant amount of money. It wasn't nothing to make nobody rich, but it was a significant amount of money before they died. So then they did not have a will. They had children, some adult children. They had some adult children who had passed away. And so their children received their part, and their children were minors. And so we had to open up a separate case in order to deal with one of the minors' parts because of the amount of money she was getting. We couldn't do it through probate. We had to open a whole nother court case. So that's a whole nother petition, a whole nother legal fee, a whole nother filing fee. And then for each of the children, we had to get guardian ad litems appointed. Guardian ad litems are attorneys. And so you have to basically pay all these other attorneys to represent the interests of those minor children. And then you also had other issues that came up to where we might have had to file 3 petitions instead of 1 because this person died without a will. And they, like I said, they weren't wealthy. These were just average folk, like most of us, average folk. Life insurance policy got in the picture, and so they inherited a decent amount of money, but a huge chunk of it is gone from legal fees. And so if they had spent, some people would do a will for less than $1,000. I would say the budget for about $2,500 if you're middle income and you got a house and decent number of assets. I would say go on budget for that for a couple, $2,500 at least. Around that. I won't say at least, so y'all don't think it's like 10,000, but about that much. If you are doing some other kind of planning, you might get up to close to 10,000, but you would be protecting maybe $100,000, $200,000 worth of assets. So I would say to go ahead and budget for that. And if you got to save up for it, save up for it. I have a plan within my office that I call a safety net plan. That's very foundational, very basic, but it has something covered. It's not going to be what I recommend that you rely on, but if you're like, I just need a will, then I have that. And I'm not doing that to advertise, but I'm saying that there are levels to it as well, where you can get that entry-level will while you're still in the building phase, and then once you get to a different phase, then you can invest a little bit more, and you just might add a little bit more. You might invest a little bit more as you go, depending on how your assets grow. But what you don't want to say, we try to save a little money over here, and we end up losing a whole lot of money over here.
Yeah.
And we don't want to do that.
How many questions we got, John?
It's just one more, but it's almost like somebody else is piggybacking on that last question.
All right, I'm gonna say this, but you can put it up. Here's what I want to tell everybody, and I'm not a baller, but I do believe that you do pay for what you get. I do believe that. When I go get some peanut butter, I want Jif. I'm gonna get Jif. I'm not gonna get whatever. So, and for some stuff, you may can. I don't want to use hustle like we trying to get over. You may can be cost effective for some stuff. But I would dare say for something like this, yes, try to be cost effective, but yes, make sure your stuff is covered too. So I get it when you said intimidated by it. We ain't got to go right at 8 if another question or 2 come in. So I get it. I get it. I get it because I think for us, or for a lot of people, I think that's what them. I think that may be the factor. The factor may be, man, I can't afford a lawyer. Some of us don't know because we haven't even asked. You just automatically assume. You know, so I'm gonna leave it at that, and I'm gonna read this question here. It say, what if the sibling executor is the only one paying the taxes? Can they claim full rights?
So this relates to the question where they said if I was the executor of a will, and this will, through the will, me and my two siblings were going to inherit a house, can the executor claim full rights? And so this is piggybacking off of that question. If the sibling executor is the only one paying the taxes, can they claim full rights? So, and this is sad, but some of my people I've consulted with have learned the hard way that anybody can pay somebody's taxes, but that don't mean they're gonna come and end up with owning the property. Like, if anybody want to go and pay the taxes for my house, then you can do that. But that don't mean you're going to get my house, because title and property taxes are separate. Title is ownership. That's separate from the taxes. So
This is so good.
yeah, and this is something that is a huge misconception. So I'll say, first of all, so I'll say, just to say that, but what can be done, anytime people, more than one person owns property, when multiple people own property together, they are legally equally responsible for the taxes, insurance, liabilities, anything that is an expense for the property. They are equally responsible for contributing to that. But we know that doesn't always happen. There's usually going to be one person who takes the bulk of the responsibility. That person then has a claim against the other people to say that you owe me contribution. You owe me your contribution. So if I pay 100% of the taxes, but I only own 1/3 of the property, then y'all owe me for the 2/3 that I've invested over the years. And so that would not automatically grant you ownership, but it might be that the court say, they done put so many taxes into this property over the years that they basically bought y'all out over the years. But you have to go to court to do that. It's not gonna be just, I pay the taxes, I get the house. You gotta go to court, file a petition for contribution. It probably is not just a petition for contribution, but contribution would be part of your claim. And you say, they owe me for what I paid to keep this property going. And so it could add up to being that you get the whole property, but I wouldn't bank on that. But what I will say is keep good records. Keep receipts. If you're paying the taxes, keep your receipts. And then when you get your lawyer to help you to figure it out, then they can help you. And another thing, one more thing I say on that is that you also could possibly put a lien on the property. And so if the property's sold, then your lien will be paid from that. So that's another possible way, but it doesn't happen automatically.
Question from the back.
Okay, they should be here. They should come in. Second though, what if that person or the executive has rented the property out without the other siblings knowing or having knowledge or knowledge? Do the siblings that don't have it, are they liable or are they? Do they get some of that money, that rent money?
They're entitled to it. How much of it? It's just the same thing with contribution. But if somebody is profiting more than their fair share of what they own, then they owe the other people. Usually, what happens is that the person who was renting out the property, they also the only one paying the taxes. They're the only one that fixed the roof. They're the only one that kept the grass cut. So it's, you kind of have to figure all those details out. But generally speaking, if you are benefiting from the property more than your fair share, then you owe the others. So it works on both ends.
I think I had some, but I don't know. I'm trying to. So I love. She said, "Remember this." I'm not going to repeat the nuggets. Your deed and your tax is two different things. One is ownership, one is the money. Okay, remember that.
And if you don't pay your taxes, then you might lose your ownership.
And I get you hear the stuff about, this might be way off subject, but you hear the stuff about squatters, right? Like if you cut somebody's grass to 10 days or something, all that type. How is that any truth to that? Like I've been cutting the grass.
So what they're referring to is adverse possession.
And
that's
now have the correct legal name.
It's adverse possession, but people say squatter law.
Yeah.
It's like the colloquial term for it, but it's you have to show certain things were the case. You have to show that the way that you used the property was open, notorious, continuous, without permission. It's just all these different things you have to check off the list to show that you have acquired ownership in this way. And so once they do that, has to be proven in court. So you don't just say, I cut the grass for 2 weeks and I own it. You have to do all those things for 20 years. And it can't be without permission. So, like, let's say that the person who owned the property came to check the mail, and they said, what you doing over here? Oh, don't cut your grass because you know you never cut it. Shut up. All right, well, I appreciate you. That's not gonna probably count because you're not treating it like you own it. You treating it like you know this their property and you just cut it because you tired of sitting grass.
Right.
So there's a lot of things there's a whole checklist that you have to prove in court, and then it's a debate over did they meet this requirement, did they meet that requirement. And I will say sometimes it's 7 years, but the 7-year thing comes up. I'm not gonna go into details, but it could be 7 or 20 years, but you have to meet all these requirements in order to.
So I want y'all to know that just because you're cutting on your neighbor's grass for 3 weeks, don't mean you can get to go claim their property.
Now you might want to go call the land bank or something and see if there's something you can do, but it's gonna be some steps involved. But that might be something if they abandon it and.
You have any questions, John? Any comments? We gotta get our viewers back up, I think. Oh.
Y'all come on now. I do better with questions. All right, shout out to all my clients.
Okay.
Keyshawn's one of my first clients when I opened my firm.
Keyshawn, you gonna need one dealing with me.
Yeah.
You might want to incriminate myself. Yeah.
So I want to say that for this, it's something that a lot of us don't want to do. We don't really want to think about it. But I'm telling you, from working with people whose family members have passed away, whether they had a will or did not have a will, the way that you handle your planning while you're living is going to impact the people after you're gone. The stress, the fighting, the overwhelm that I've seen. Here's a tidbit that I'm going to give that y'all might not think about as part of estate planning.
Thank you.
Organizing. I don't know how many clients I've had who, once their loved one has passed away, the thing they dread most is going through their loved one's stuff.
Oh.
Having to go through the closet, the bags, the boxes, the drawers, and find the mattresses. Y'all saw Soul Food, where they got the money from the wall or something?
I forgot. What did they get?
Yeah, it was like in the wall. But I mean, Big Mom house was clean and neat, but she hid the stuff in the wall. But a lot of us, the clients, you say, where's the will? They're like, I done looked through 7 bags, and I still got 30 more to go through. Because people put their papers in bags. And so you got your Kroger receipts and your gas receipts and your light bill and your car note, and you got your will. All in the same bag. Or you got your bank statements and all this stuff in there, and your family don't know where you bank, They can't find the statements. They got to go through your purse, and they got to see all the things that make them feel sad because they miss you. And so I think that that's something that we have to think about as well when we're planning, also preparing our homes so that they're not impossible to go through. I've had clients who shut down houses or shut down wings of houses because they just can't go through the stuff. And some of it is just grief, and I encourage people that if you're experiencing that, that's not something to just brush under the rug. You need to get some therapy and get somebody to help you. I talked to a lady the other day who part of what she does is helps families to sort through the stuff and put it in a reasonable kind of order so that it can either be sold or that it can be destroyed or given away.
So it's best to probably put it somewhere like in a filing cabinet.
Put your important papers
a little
files.
waterproof safe.
Yeah, if you have your will, your power of attorney, your healthcare directives, keep those in a safe place where if it floods, if there's fire, that they'll be protected. Put in a place where the people who need to know where to get it, and the people who don't need to know don't know where to get it. So if you got, let's say that you got a child that they just ain't did right, and so you didn't leave them anything. If you have a will, they get nothing. If you don't have a will, they get a portion of your estate as a intestate heir at law. So they might say, I ain't get nothing. I'm gonna throw away this will, and then when they gone, then I'm going to get what I get by state law. So I always say, keep it where the people who need to find it know where to get it. Keep it where the people who don't need to find it can't get to it.
Go ahead.
I have a quick question. So, like, I mean, you kind of already partially answered with what you just said, that intestate or whatever you said. So there's a natural, if you don't have a will, there's like a natural kind of like progression of like, how it would go if you didn't do right, if you didn't get a will.
You sound like you live with a lawyer or something. But yes, I'm glad you asked that question because
I'm glad you asked.
I'm really glad because I forgot. So if you have a will, you get to say who gets what from your estate. You get to say, these are the people who I want to leave my property to. This is what I want to leave them. If you don't have a will, state law is going to come into play. And state law is every state has different laws, so that's something to keep in mind. And they try to think, if I was the person leaving this property, how would I want it to go? So the first, if you have a spouse and no children, your spouse gets everything. If you have children but no spouse, your children get everything. If you have a spouse and children, then it's going to be split between them a certain way. Now, the thing that gets complicated about that is that this is spouse, regardless of if it's your first spouse, your second, or your third spouse, and all your kids. So your kids could be from this spouse, or they could be from other relationships. And they may or may not really want to be kind to their step-parent. So we see this a lot where we have a step-parent who they inherited 1/3 of the property, because that's how the current law is. They inherit 1/3, and then the children, whether it's their children, their biological children, or their stepchildren, they all inherit 2/3. So if you got a house, let's say, this is the father's second marriage, and he had children from his first marriage. He had no children from the second marriage, but he's been married to his wife for 40 years, and this is the house they lived in their whole marriage. After he's gone, if he did not have a will, his spouse has to fight with those children over the house. And there is a provision that for the first 2 years after the person dies, you can take advantage of a law called a year support, where the spouse can still get what they need to live on. But if you don't take advantage of that, or if the children fight you on it, then you have to fight the children over the place you've been living in for 40 years. So that's like one of the sadder stories that we see, where it might be a spouse who might lose their house because their loved one died without a will, and they had to fight between their stepchildren.
Well, We may have to have part two. We might
I
have
can do this all night, y'all.
Yeah, we might have to, but that, and I want to applaud you, number one, for digging in deep and God putting this on your heart to be your specialty. Lawyers, people hear you say law and they just feel like you're supposed to be able to call it every gamut, and you pick a specialty. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's something basic that all lawyers learn, but you pick a specialty. So we thank you that this and enjoy. Are there any more questions before we leave? We about to wrap it up. We might have to do a part two. We might have to do something.
You leave a video explaining certain details of a will, so everyone is clear.
Oh.
That's kind of a tricky kind of thing.
Good question, Janice Mays. I don't know who Janice Mays is. Glad you tuned in.
Glad you tuned in. But it can I always tell people the more information that you have available gives people more things to fight over.
Okay.
Because they can say, well, you can look at her. She looked like she about to go to sleep on there. She wasn't well. Look at her. And look at the way the lawyer looking at her. She didn't feel like she had a choice. So you have like more evidence to fight over that might be an issue. It can be possibly helpful, but it's best is putting that black and white, because the black and white is what's legally binding. The way that the law reads, it does not say that a will can be used. I mean that a video can be used as a will, or to explain a will, or to substitute parts of a will, and so it's not going to be legally binding. The thing that's legally binding is that paper, that last will and testament. And so if there are things that need to be explained, it needs to be explained in that will. And having the right lawyer can help you to
So you really
figure out how
saying
to
do
put that
both?
language. Huh?
Do both.
I would recommend not doing a video. If you do a video, it might just be like, hey y'all, I love y'all. If you feel like
that's how I feel.
But I wouldn't explain the will. I just whatever it needs explaining, the explanation needs to be put on the paper.
That's what I would think. Once again, here's the lawyer, and she already has given her indemnification. What it is? Disclaimer. I would say that, keep it in black and white, but I know, like you said, I'm a both thing guy, so I'd probably still make a video and something and say, hey, huh?
Yeah, I feel say tell you look, y'all don't come to me with that video now.
No. I'm saying like as a good will. Like what I'm saying, I'm gonna get it in writing. But I'm just saying, cause me, I can be sentimental. So I'm probably gonna have some, hey, watch this video when I'm gone. And I just probably like explain why I gave everybody stuff. I'm gonna have it in writing.
We don't like to see that. We don't like to see that as lawyers because, like I said, it gives people more stuff to fight over. The reason why I gave Josh, such this, and it's like, it gives people more stuff to bring up.
Let them fight.
Now, what you do is just say, Josh, I love you. That's what I did. It's like you.
Yeah, I get you.
You put those details. I'm just telling you. So
I just make the video and don't say why I gave you nothing. I love y'all. Y'all do right by yourself.
Yeah, you could get the with, and there are a lot of lawyers who, as part of their process, they have a time where the parents can do a video, but they do avoid talking too much about what's in the will.
Gotcha.
They just focus more so on, I taught you this. Don't forget about this. This is important to me. This is important to us. I left y'all the land because y'all know land is important, but not details.
Gotcha.
Like that stuff, and then it's gonna be like, well, is the will, does the video supersede any parts of the will?
Gotcha.
When was it done? It just adds more to the conversation.
When was it done? Was it on a deathbed? Did she have a 45 to her head and we didn't see it?
Was it the same? I know. I see the barrel. That ain't a barrel. That's a microphone. No, it's not. It's a gun. It's just like. you
got a question, John, before we go?
That's it. Last comment, y'all saw the last comment. You said, "Thank you, good answer."
Was that a lawyer who said good answer?
All I really want to say is tonight I've been I done learned that I don't care how cut them people grass all you want. If you ain't did it for 20 years and you just been balling out like they don't know it, it ain't your property.
You have a long range view. Like, I'm gonna do this for the next 20
Right.
years.
And what
I'm gonna do it when they not visiting.
Right. And what we call it, adverse
Possession.
possession.
And it's real. That's how a lot of black folks lost their land. That's why. So just a little quick thing on land. If you got family land, you need to go visit that land. Because that fence post might not be where it was last time you looked. And so you got to walk your land. You got to inspect it. You got to see if it's anything that looks weird. Because that's how people, I won't just say black folks, but particularly black folks have lost their land. By being absentee landowners.
Wow.
So we could talk about this all night. And I know we can't.
You know, this is, I hope you learned something tonight, gain something. This is very practical. Very practical. But we need practicality in the kingdom. We just came from a good person leaves an inheritance to his children's children. If you can't leave one to your children's children, then leave one to your children. Hence, I used to read it. Here's another way you can read that. You can read it to where, like, my dad, she had been left an inheritance to my church, and his dad, I should be looking out the inheritance of my granddad. So really, I'm taking care of the generation behind them, and the generation before me is taking the generation behind me.
Yeah, because if you think about it, like, I don't want my children to be my heirs when I'm, like, they need to be already business owners and well.
And that's what their grandparents would have left them.
I want to give it to my great grands. You know, they the ones who gonna need it because the other ones gonna be set.
Right.
Because they already done went through school and did that.
Right.
So it's like you don't want to be like when you die, the people who need it most are your children. They should be fully established. If you live out a long life, they would be established and have their own already. And so what you're leaving is something for the grandchildren.
Well, if I'm going to live that long, I'm going to have to change professions probably. I don't know. I'm just going to be like, I'm going to be on the sunny beach somewhere, just smiling. Let y'all just live. Now, on a serious note though, man, this has been great. Listen, if you need to hire around, you know, tell them how to get in contact with you. I'm open for all that. For real, this is what we do. Tell them how to get in contact with you.
Well, y'all can give us a call. Our number is 478-292-7444. Again, it's 478-292-7444. Or you can go online and visit us at McClendonLawOffice.com. That's MCCLENDON lawoffice.com. Or you can email the church and they can send the information if you didn't get that.
Yeah. We're all about that. It's not, first of all, she's a faithful member, they give, so it ain't about, you have to come to church and network. That's not even that spirit. But I do also believe you have a chance to help those within your midst. You do that. You do that. I tell you what, now it's your turn to sow a seed into this practical word that you got tonight. We're going to show you one way to give. What two?
We'll text to give first.
I'm going to text to give, okay. Hey, you can text to give. Text KL Giving to 1-888-364-4483. KL Giving. Make sure you download the app. You can give on the app. You can give straight through the app. Yeah, you can watch videos on the app. You can watch this Bible study on the app. You can watch the stream on the app. You can watch Sunday service on the app. You can text and get messages on it. You can take notes on the app. Download the app. I'm pretty sure Keyshawn would love that. For real, y'all, we've been blessed. Get on the app. We used to do a lot of communicating through GroupMe. And some of us still do use it a little bit, but even with the leadership groups and stuff like that, we're probably gonna go fully on the app. We'll we're spending and using the resources for it. So we need to go there. Because you can also be in a general text group with everybody. You can be in a specific group according to the auxiliary you work with. But please download the Kingdom Life app. All right. For those of you who've been to the Urban CEO, we have an Urban CEO app. You can download that. We just apped up. All right now. All right. Anything you want to say before our prayers out? Anything you want to say?
If we do the part 2, I want to talk more about how this makes sense as Christians, as a spiritual, like talk a little more in depth. Because I think people do think of it as separate, but to me it's so intertwined. And so I think that there's a way we can go into that. But I just want to put that plug that this is not just about money and physical things, but I believe it has spiritual impacts. So.
Why you do that in a week or two? In a week or two, you never know. In a week or two. Hey, I want to thank you all for tuning in. Next time we have it, we'll do it. We'll blow it up some more and make sure that people really got it. I think some people really got it tonight, and I hope you did. Veronica has given her number and email on how to contact her. Listen, y'all, don't try to take the cheap way out. Listen, I know we don't like to think about the world without us in it, but one day, we're going to wake up and we're going to be in heaven. If you don't get your life to the Lord anyway. Which means you're not going to be here. Do not leave the stuff here for them to be like, I can't believe how they know Keith and then one like that. Them children they'll go slap crazy over you. So don't one pair of Gucci shoes or Louis you got, go on and let people know who's going to get them. The one pocketbook, whatever it is. We know the stuff we know that people want. Go ahead, write it out. Let John or somebody else sign it who ain't no kin to you. Veronica do it. And then don't forget, we're going to probate it. Don't forget you can't, just because you've been paying the tax on the high, don't mean it's all yours. Father, we thank you for tonight. We thank you for the gifts that you placed inside of the body. We thank you for gifts you placed inside the body. We thank you for those of us who are thinking legacy-wise and who will continue to move out in legacy. Speak to us on today about how you will have us put our affairs in order as we're thinking about transitioning. As we're thinking about leaving an inheritance to our children's children. Watch us as we go home on tonight and bless us. It's in your son, Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Hey, this is Dominique Johnson, the pastor of Kingdom Life, and also the Urban CEO. So if you want to live your best life, live a Kingdom Life. Double salute.